glad to be here. My biggest passion in life, because I'm a nurse and I was going to take theology, but my sister told me that please don't, all your members are going to backslide if you do. And so my passion and my ministry is health, and I wanted to bring that to you here today. And I wonder, Joseph, if we can, oh, this is it now? Let me see. Oh, okay, here we go. See if I can, or this way. That way? Okay, there we go. Now I got it. Now this is why I'm very passionate with health. Although I ate relatively healthy, I think I ate too much. When I married my husband, we both grew in size, and we weighed quite a bit back in 2006. And we started the journey to better health. And in 2012, he and I were able to lose a cumulative of 100 pounds. Roughly about 50 kilos between the two of us. And this is a picture from our first triathlon. We were so happy. It was a very short triathlon, but to me it represented a journey and the first step towards better health for life. This, I think I'm gonna get this right eventually. So I wanted to talk to you today about health and how can we make health where you can actually remember all the different aspects of it. I'm sorry, I like to walk around when I talk. So what I had done, when I talked to one of the directors of the New Start program in Weimar, California, how many of you have heard of New Start? It's a wonderful program, right? And I really, really believe in their program. But I was told that if ever I use New Start in any program, that I have to ask them for permission because it's a registered trademark and they copyrighted it. And so apparently I can't just use it whenever I want to. So I said I do a lot of health talks in various churches. So what I had done is I created a new acronym that I can just use whenever I want to. And so I put together this word called NOURISH. And NOURISH stands for N for nutrition, O for outdoors, U for uplift, R for reflect, I for inspire, S for stamina or energy, and H for happiness and humor. And I'd like to go through this one by one. So when we say N for nutrition, when we are not healthy, when we feed our bodies not the right type of food, our bodies actually break down. It's like a car. We take care of our cars, we tune it up, we put the right gasoline in it, right? Because if we put diesel in a car that takes gasoline, it's not gonna run, it's gonna break down. So it's the same with our bodies. If we put the wrong kind of fuel, it's not gonna run right, and eventually something will break down and something will be wrong with it. I like this author, his name is Michael Pollan. And I like how he put eating healthy very simply in just a few words. He said, eat foods, not too much, and mostly plants. How easy can that be? Because as a healthcare provider, many years ago, people have said, oh, we should eat 60% of our diet as carbohydrates, about 20% of it should be protein, about 20% of it is fat, or 10% fat. How many of you sit down and then look at your plate and you say, oh, that's about 60% carbohydrate, or that's about 10% fat? We don't do that. That is not something that we do. So I said, how do I teach my patients to eat healthy without having to measure the grams of carbohydrates, protein, and fat that they're gonna eat? So that's the reason why I've adopted what Michael Pollan had said. This is not your diet here, I hope, in Thailand, but this is the diet that we have in America. And I am not kidding you. If you go to an average restaurant in America, this is what you're gonna see. You're gonna see a hamburger that has very fatty meat. They're gonna have a lot of cheese on it. It's gonna be with a side of fries that's been deep fried. You're gonna see steak, and they're gonna put potatoes that they've also fried in the pan. They're gonna put fried eggs with it. They're gonna put corn, but they've also cooked it in a lot of butter. They're gonna put mashed potatoes that they've cooked in a lot of butter and put a lot of gravy on top of it, which is made of fat and salt. So pretty much, they're also gonna put a side of salad, but then they drizzle it with so much ranch dressing that is made mainly of buttermilk that is very high in fat. And so no wonder America has a very, very high rate of obesity, and our rate of diabetes is also exponentially growing. But that's not what I'm, concerned about at the moment. What I had done is that I had looked at the worldwide obesity statistics just to get a little bit of an idea on what we look like around the world. So according to the World Health Organization, obesity has more than doubled in 37 years. More than doubled in percentage. In 2014, they said more than 1.9 billion adults are overweight and over 600 million are obese. So certainly in the newer population, this is growing. 39% of adults aged 18 years or over were overweight in 2014 and 13% were obese. Most of the world's population live in the countries where there's obesity and overweight. It kills more people than the underweight population. 41 million children under the age of 5 are overweight or obese, and probably America is one of the contributors in that, because we do have very high obesity rates in our country for our children. Obesity is preventable. When you see obesity, you also see diabetes. And according to the World Health Organization, the number of people with diabetes has gone from 108 million in 1980 to 422 million in 2014. How many of you, by a raise of hand, do not know anybody with diabetes? Do not know anybody with diabetes. That is because every single one of us, whether it be in our family, ourselves, or our friends, have diabetes, correct? It is very prevalent now. And in fact, diabetes is rising even more rapidly in the lower income countries. Diabetes now is a major cause of blindness, kidney failure, heart attack, stroke, and lower limb amputation. And in fact, it actually is the 7th largest or the 7th highest killer in the whole world, not just the United States. I was going to say that. So these are some of the statistics that the World Health Organization has given us. But the main issue here is that diabetes is actually quite preventable. We can prevent this. I had a patient who talked to me and said, "You've been in diabetes a long time." And I said, "Yes, about 15 years. I've specialized in diabetes." He said, "Have they found a cure for diabetes? Can we cure diabetes?" And I said, "The cure for type 2 diabetes has existed a long time ago." And he said, "Oh, how come nobody talked about how to cure type 2 diabetes?" And I said, "We've talked about it, but nobody wants to hear it." And then he said, "So what's the cure? Is there a pill?" And I said, "No, it's diet, eating better, and losing weight." Because the basic tenets of diabetes is actually along hand in hand with the obesity crisis in the world. Another thing that we have looked at, and the World Health Organization put a statement on this about 2 years ago. I think it's 2 years ago now. According to the study that was done, now this study, I know it's very small, but it looked at 37,000 people, and the 37,000 people are actually health professionals. They were, I believe, men, and 83,000 of them were women from the Nurses' Health Study. So they looked at over 110,000 people, and they followed them over the years to see if they developed heart disease, diabetes, obesity, and if they died early in life. What they had found out in this study, that people who ate red meat is actually had higher rates of total heart disease, cancer, and people who actually ate meat actually died a lot earlier. So what the World Health Organization, after compiling so many studies, not just this one, they had now put an advisory that people should eat less processed meat, especially in the form of like Spam, Vienna sausage, corned beef. A lot of those things, what I remember, I used to send to my family members, you know, because when you live in the States, what do you send them? You send them corned beef, you send them turkey Spam, because we're Adventists, right? And then we send them chicken Vienna sausage, you know, that type of thing. And then what I didn't know is that I'm helping kill my family members. It is not good. So they said processed red meat and most likely red meat by itself is not good for us. It is the leading cause of cardiovascular disease. They die from cancer because of it, and they also die from strokes. So according to the World Health Organization, that eating plant-based foods like vegetables, fruits, nuts, beans actually have been associated to living longer. And that's probably why when you look at worldwide, people who are Seventh-day Adventists and practice the health beliefs of Seventh-day Adventists actually have less diseases and actually live longer. And it's very, I like this plate because it makes it very easy. This is from actually a group that is run by Dr. Neil Bernard. His advice is this: you eat half of your plate as vegetables, not half of your plate as rice, right? Being Asians, we tend to put half of our plate as white rice, and then a little bit of everything else. So the advice on here is half of your plate as vegetables, 1/4 of the plate are any type of grain, but hopefully a lot of fiber in the grain. White rice happens to have zero amount of fiber, and so they advise eating red rice, brown rice, black rice, those are better for us, and plant-based proteins instead of eating meats. If you want to drink that is fortified with calcium, you can have soy, and then they also advise at least a couple of fruits every single day. And going to outdoors, N is for nutrition, O for outdoors. According to Richard Burden here, sometimes when we are far from clocks and schedules, we can still recapture a lost sense of place, space, time. On a relaxing camping trip, or because your church is going on camping, right? And long day outdoors, perhaps we can slip back into the rhythm of the sun. What we are finding nowadays that, and I'm pulling this only because I cannot find statistics for Thailand, is that the average American kids actually spend a lot less time in the sun nowadays. They said that a boy or girl spends as few as 30 minutes of unstructured outdoor play each day, and more than 7 hours each day in front of an electronic screen. And I found this really true in Europe when I was there a couple of years ago. In Ireland and in UK, I have noticed that it rains a lot, and the kids cannot go outdoors. So what do? They play on their phones, they play with all their other mobile devices, or they play video games on TV, but they have no other interaction, they don't go outside. According to the studies too, that adults spend less time, about 1 to 1.6 hours outdoors regularly, and about 5 to 6 hours during the holidays. So we're spending less and less time outdoors where there's fresh air and sunlight. And what we're also finding that a lot of people suffer from minor illnesses. And if you have this, think about this. Increased exposure to chemicals. When we're inside buildings all day long, we don't know how long the building has been there. We don't know what materials it's made of, what chemicals were used on the paints that we put on the wall, on the ventilation system of buildings. What they're saying is that buildings may contain formaldehyde in carpets and furniture. It may have carbon monoxide, some chemicals in electrical transformers. I had a secretary one time in the office, they put her in a closet where the computers were, and she kept having headaches every single day because she was right next to electrical wiring. Radiation from building insulation, ozone from copiers, solvents used from cleaners, glues, and copiers. And natural causes for indoor air pollution are carbon monoxide. If you put a lot of people in one room, of course, we produce a lot of carbon monoxide. And the other thing is microorganisms or bacteria. Because when you have a lot of people breathing in, breathing out the same system, and you have vents, some of that bacteria gets accumulated in the vent, therefore the microorganisms will circulate in the air. What are the health effects of what we call indoor exposure? You may have headaches, you may have sinus discomfort, you may have upper respiratory congestion, eye irritations. Those are just some of the results of air contamination. So we have worried a lot about the sun because, you know, in Thailand and the Philippines, we do get a lot of our share of sunlight. I remember in college, we really don't want to expose our skin to sun. So we carried umbrellas, whether it's raining or not raining. Because when it's sunny, we use it to cover our faces, right, from the sun. And if it's raining, we use it to not get wet. But overall, the fear for sun and sun-related diseases only accounts for about 0.1% of the burden of disease worldwide, when in fact, the lack of sunlight exposure have actually been related to an increased rate of vitamin D deficiency, and you need vitamin D to process and make your bones healthy. They said that vitamin D deficiency, if it's deficient even as children, the bone development of that child will be affected for the rest of their lives. And so it's so important that even from birth, we get enough vitamin D. Seasonal affective disorders, people that are not exposed to sunlight, especially in certain places in Europe, where they only get minimal sunlight, are more prone to depression and other psychiatric disorders. Nearsightedness. We know that too much sun exposure can actually cause cataracts, but we also don't know that we do need a little bit of the sun to actually keep our eyes healthy. Impaired immune system. We know from the readings that we've gotten from Ellen G. White that she always advocated for opening the windows, for getting some sunlight, because it's a natural killer of bacteria and it actually boosts our immune system. So the lack of that has been associated with certain immune diseases. Risks for breast cancer, prostate cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and obesity have actually been linked to the lack of vitamin D. U stands for uplift. According to Kierkegaard, prayer does not change God, but it does change the person who prays. And I truly believe in this, because we can pray and pray and pray, but we do not change God because God is perfect. But as we pray, our hearts get changed. And so it's so important that for proper health, we actually pray. There was a study that was done on people who pray. People who pray value the experience as a connection with a higher power. Those who has control over their health and well-being actually are the people who are going to church regularly. They're finding that people who go to church regularly have lower mortality rates. They have better improved overall health, and they also have better mental health. In fact, in some of the other studies that they've looked at, like for example this one, patients who are hospitalized who never attend church actually stay 3 times longer than people who are churchgoers. And heart patients were 14 times more likely to die following surgery if they do not practice any religion at all. Elder people who never or rarely attend church had a stroke rate that's 2 times higher than people who go to church. And people who are more religious tend to become depressed less often. And if they do have depression, they tend to recover from the depression a lot quicker. And why do you think that is? I think primarily it's because of the support of the collaborative group. And as churchgoers, we practice certain health practices that we actually have less, and then the social interaction, the community aspect of church have actually kept us healthy. R stands for reflect, and I like this because reflection doesn't mean, and this is the saying that says, most people assume that meditation is all about stopping your thoughts, getting rid of emotions, and somehow controlling your mind. But actually, it's about stepping back, about seeing things very clearly, and witnessing it coming and going. And this is how reflection is defined. It's a form of mental exercise or activity that people engage into to explore their experiences, leading to new personal understanding and appreciation of life. And oftentimes as Christian, our reflection comes through meditation, and that is through our prayer. I just heard last week, I was listening to a speaker called Sanjeev Chopra. Have you heard of him? He's actually the brother of Deepak Chopra, and Deepak Chopra has written many motivational books. And according to Sanjeev Chopra, every single day you need to meditate. And if on that day you forget to meditate, then you meditate twice. And what it's actually saying is that if you forget to pray that day, go back and pray twice that day. Because meditation and connecting yourself with a higher power, like with our God, actually is beneficial and calming for our soul and keeps us healthy. Reflection is important to look at our experiences, but as we reflect, I think we need to also incorporate gratitude. They're finding in a lot of studies that people who have gratitude in their heart and are thankful actually are healthier than the people who are not. They have less problems, they have less issues with depression, they actually tend to be smarter in schools too, they have better grades. So having gratitude, having thankfulness in the heart is very important. The biggest issue I have when I talk to a lot of churchgoers and Seventh-day Adventists is the idea of self-affirmation. Now, according to some of the social and, let's say, non-religious sect, they actually say reflection as reflecting on the values that are personally relevant to us. It's looking within ourselves and valuing ourselves. And they feel that, for the most part, that is very self-centered and it's selfish. But when you think about it this way, and this is how I put it with self-affirmation, if you're a person and you give and give and give, because we have a lot of missionaries, right? And you serve the people all the time. But on the time, on days that you just keep serving and you don't replenish your own soul, you don't make the time to pray, to learn, to reaffirm what you believe in your heart to be. It is easier that on the time of trouble, you can actually get swayed because you have lost yourself along the way. And that is why it is so important that we actually practice self-affirmation to know who we are, to know what we want in life, to know what we believe and have ikigai. It's a Japanese word, isn't it? To have the purpose. Because if we lose the purpose we have in life, and we lose the idea that we are the children of God and we have a purpose to fulfill on earth, then when something happens, the world can influence us a lot quicker. And so I feel like self-affirmation should be a practice of all Christians to get to know ourselves, to keep our practices current and our purpose very clear in our minds, lest we go astray. Okay, let's see if I can do that again. Doesn't seem to want to move now. Can we move the next slide, please? Okay, I like this one. It said we choose our attitude to gratitude. Mr. Viktor Frankl was actually a Holocaust survivor. He went through the Nazi concentration camps, and this is what he said: everything can be taken away from man except for one thing. He said, you cannot take away one thing from man, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. So when people say, you're making me mad, or you're making me sad, or you're making me whatever it is, it's more like a projection of other people affecting your mood, and then you respond to it instead of controlling what you are inside, correct? So I always tell people, when we get angry, when anything happens to us, it's within our control and we are responsible for that. Okay, and I stands for inspire. According to Plato, good actions give strength to ourselves and it inspires good action in others. I love this story in particular. Can you look at the picture very closely? I know he has sunglasses on. Do you recognize him? He's a very famous actor. Was a very famous actor. That's actually Robin Williams. Robin Williams has been involved with an organization that you can see, it says CAF. This was taken in San Diego where I live. CAF is actually an organization that supports athletes, like children, like this guy over here, his name is Rudy. I've met him, he's my friend on Facebook. Rudy was born with deformed legs. And so after many surgeries, by the age of 6, he pled with his parents to just cut off his legs because he was tired of surgeries. So at the age of 6, when they cut off his legs, he became an athlete. Rudy is now an Ironman triathlete. The man can swim 2.4 miles, bike 112 miles, and go run 26.2 miles with no two legs. He uses prosthetics. And Robin Williams was his mentor. And it always makes my hair stand when I talk about this because he had given a lot to the sport of triathlon, especially for people like Rudy, who are, who have disabilities. In inspiring others, I like this saying by Dr. Clayton Christensen. He spoke to Harvard one time, and he's also the author of How You Will Measure Your Life. He said, don't worry about the level of individual prominence, how much education you have, how famous you are, who you are, how much money you have in life. That doesn't really matter, is what he's saying here. He said the measure of your success in life is basically how many people you have helped along the way. And that's the message of our lives. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much education we have, how much money we accrued from working very hard. What really, really matters is how many individual people we have touched and how many we have brought closer to Christ or have helped along the way, even the people that we smile along the streets. And that is how our life is measured. S stands for stamina. According to Dan Buettner, who was the author of that article, the National Geographic article on longevity, where he identified the Adventists as the longest living people in the world, he said, people who are making it to 100 live in environments where they are nudged always into physical activity. And that is so true. We always have to keep moving. What is the benefit of exercise? It helps control our weight, it helps combat health conditions, it improves our mood. So when we don't exercise, we actually get more depressed and irritable. It boosts up our energy so we can actually do more. And people always tell me this, why do you think exercise gives you energy? Don't you get tired when you exercise? When in fact your endorphins go up and you can actually do more when you exercise. It promotes better sleep. My elderly patients always tell me, I have problems with sleeping, can you please prescribe me a sleeping medication? And I always say, oh sure, I will. Exercise 30 minutes every single day. And then they look at me. I said, no doctor, I want a prescription. And I said, I'm saying I'm writing this down. You need to exercise 30 minutes a day because if you're not tired, you won't sleep better at night. Improve bone density, it makes our bones stronger, and of course it can be fun if you like your exercise. The lack of exercise has been shown to lead people to depression, gaining weight, it makes you at risk for heart disease, risk for diabetes, and it also worsens arthritis. People always tell me, I don't exercise, doctora. Most of my patients are from Mexico, so they speak Spanish to me. Doctora, no ejercicio. And then I say, ¿por qué? Why? He said, oh señora, mucho problema with arthritis or rodeas. I said, so they have a lot of problems with arthritis on their knees. And I said, make sure you move. And then they look at me. I said, what do you mean? I can't move, I have arthritis on my knees. And I said, you have arthritis on your knees, that's why you need to move. Because arthritis is the kind of disease that you don't have enough fluids in between your bones. And you need to move that to keep that fluidity in there. And so whatever you do, whatever you want to do, make it fun. Just be active. First picture here is actually Grandpa. He's the grandpa of my nephew, great-grandpa of my nephew. He was still hiking at the age of 94, and he passed away at the age of 95. So he was very active even to the last. My nephew likes to play in the sand, and of course, whatever you want to do, and I'm passionate about triathlon, you can go swim and bike. That is always fun. And the last one is happiness and humor. According to the saying here, laughter is the sound of the soul dancing. My soul probably looks like Fred Astaire. So why happiness? It says here, choose to be happy. There was a saying that says that happiness is not something that we can search for, that we can run and try and grasp and obtain. It said, no, happiness is not like that. Because the more you search for it, the more you cannot attain it. The more you can't reach it. Because happiness is not an acquisition. It never has been. It's not something that we can own. happiness is a matter of attitude, and happiness is a matter of choice. We wake up in the morning, and at that time in the morning, we choose if we want to be grouchy or we want to be happy, correct? So just simply try. Make happiness a part of your everyday life. I had a friend, she told me that every morning she will face the mirror and she would smile at herself. And she'll keep practicing that smile, so when she walks into work, she starts smiling at people. And when people smile back at her, it makes her happy. Therefore, she actually created a recipe for happiness. Very simple. Choose mindfulness. Be aware of your surroundings. Smile your way to happiness. That's always a good thing. And then that people always tell me, why are you smiling at people? Why are you talking to somebody? Do you know that person? I said, no. But it makes me happy to chat with people. It makes me happy when I smile at them. Practice gratitude. If you're always thankful in your heart, it's much easier to be happy. Find happiness and you will find success. On this research study that I have read, they said that people who actually are successful people are actually, for the most part, happy people. And happiness can lead to success, which is quite interesting. And not monetary success, but success in life in general. And practice compassion. Be kind to people. So lastly, before I go today, I really just want to say, don't take yourself seriously. Live long and prosper. So again, NOURISH. N stands for nutrition. O stands for outdoors. U for uplift, prayer to God. R stands for reflect. I for inspire others, inspire yourself. S for exercise, that's right. And H for thank you very much for having me this morning.